He hadn't eaten in 2 days, his clothes were soaked with rain, and no one even knew his name. But when a pregnant woman collapsed in front of him, this homeless orphan made a choice that would change destinies forever, without knowing she was a millionaire whose power could rewrite his entire life. The night was colder than usual, the kind of cold that crawls into your bones and refuses to leave. Rain fell steadily, turning the cracked sidewalks into dark mirrors reflecting flickering streetlights. The city moved on as it always did, cars rushing past, people huddled under umbrellas, eyes forward, hearts closed. In the shadow of an old bus stop, a thin boy sat curled up, his knees pulled to his chest, arms wrapped around himself, as if that could keep the hunger away. His name was Adam. Or at least, that's what his mother used to call him before sickness took her away and the world forgot he existed. Adam was 16, though hunger and hardship made him look younger. His hair was damp and tangled, his jacket 2 sizes too big, found in a charity bin months ago. His stomach burned with emptiness, but he had learned to ignore it. Hunger was an old companion now, persistent, cruel, familiar. He had no parents, no home, no one waiting for him anywhere. The streets had raised him, taught him how to survive, how to stay invisible, how to sleep lightly and wake at the smallest sound. Kindness, he had learned, was rare. People walked past him every day as if he were part of the pavement, something to step over, not someone to see. Adam was about to curl deeper into himself when he heard it. A sharp gasp. He lifted his head, eyes narrowing through the rain. A woman stood a few steps away, near the curb. She looked out of place on this street. Her coat was expensive, her shoes polished, though now splashed with dirty water. One hand clutched her stomach, the other braced against a lamppost. She was pregnant, very pregnant. Adam watched, uncertain. People like her never noticed people like him. He had learned not to interfere, not to draw attention. Attention could be dangerous. Then she cried out again, this time in pain. Adam stood up without fully realizing he had decided to move. His legs protested, weak from hunger, but he took a step closer. "Ma'am," he said softly, his voice rough from disuse. She didn't answer. Her knees buckled, and she collapsed onto the wet ground with a cry that cut through the sound of rain. Panic flashed across her face. Her breathing became fast, uneven. I can't," she whispered, her voice trembling. "Something's wrong." Adam's heart began to race. He looked around wildly. People were passing by, men in suits, couples laughing, someone talking loudly on a phone. Surely someone else would help. Someone older. Someone stronger. Someone who mattered. But no one stopped. Adam swallowed hard. He knelt beside her, rain soaking into his thin jeans. He didn't know much, but he knew fear when he saw it. He had seen it in his mother's eyes in her final days. "Please," the woman said, gripping his sleeve suddenly. Her hand was warm, shaking. I think I'm going into labor. Or something's wrong. I can't breathe." Her eyes met his, wide and desperate. In that moment, she wasn't rich or powerful or important. She was just a scared human being in pain. Adam's instinct screamed at him to run. He was weak. He was nobody. What if he made things worse? What if someone accused him of something? But another voice, quieter yet stronger, spoke inside him, the voice his mother had planted there long ago. "Be kind," she used to say, "even when the world isn't." "I'll help you," Adam said, surprising himself with how steady his voice sounded. "I promise." He looked up again, raising his arm and waving frantically at passing cars. "Help! Someone help!" he shouted. A car slowed, then sped up. Another driver glanced and looked away. The woman cried out in pain again, clutching her stomach. Adam knew he couldn't wait anymore. He slid one arm behind her back, the other under her arm, trying to lift her. She was heavier than she looked, and his arms shook violently. Hunger made his vision blur, black, dancing at the edges. "It's okay," he whispered, though he wasn't sure it was. "Lean on me." Step by step, slipping on wet pavement, Adam dragged her toward the bus stop bench. His muscles screamed. His breath came in gasps. At one point, his foot slipped, and he nearly fell, but he twisted his body, taking the impact on his shoulder instead of letting her hit the ground. Pain exploded through him, but he didn't cry out. He laid her gently on the bench, taking off his oversized jacket and placing it under her head. The rain soaked through his thin shirt instantly, but he didn't care. "Stay with me," he said urgently. "Please. Look at me." Her eyelids fluttered. "My phone, my bag," she murmured weakly. Adam spotted a leather handbag nearby, fallen into a puddle. He grabbed it, wiped his hands on his jeans, and searched inside with shaking fingers. His hands brushed against things he had never touched before: expensive perfume, sleek cards, a phone that looked impossibly new. He found the phone and pressed the screen. It lit up instantly. "I don't know the code," he said, panic creeping into his voice. "Emergency," she whispered. "Call emergency." He did. His fingers trembled as he explained the situation to the operator, stumbling over his words, apologizing repeatedly as if everything was his fault. "We're sending an ambulance," the voice said calmly. "Stay with her. Keep her conscious." Adam nodded, even though the operator couldn't see him. He knelt beside the bench, holding the woman's hand in both of his, rubbing warmth into her cold fingers. His own body began to shiver uncontrollably now, not just from cold, but from exhaustion. "You're going to be okay," he said, over and over. "Your baby too. Just breathe. Like this." He demonstrated slow breaths, praying she would follow. When she cried, he stayed. When she squeezed his hand hard enough to hurt, he didn't pull away. Minutes felt like hours. Finally, in the distance, he heard it, the faint wail of a siren cutting through the rain. Relief crashed over him so hard his knees almost gave out. The ambulance screeched to a stop nearby. Paramedics jumped out, moving fast, asking questions, taking control. One of them glanced at Adam, his soaked clothes, hollow cheeks, shaking hands. "You did this?" the paramedic asked. Adam nodded silently. "You saved her life," the man said, with quiet certainty. Adam didn't respond. He just stepped back, suddenly aware of how small and out of place he was. As they loaded the woman onto the stretcher, she reached for him weakly. "Thank you," she whispered, tears in her eyes. "Please don't leave." Adam froze, heart pounding. He had no idea that this moment, this single act of kindness, had just tied his fate to hers forever. And he had no idea who she truly was. The ambulance doors slammed shut, sealing the woman inside with the flashing lights and the sharp smell of antiseptic. Rain continued to fall, but Adam barely felt it anymore. He stood frozen on the sidewalk, his heart still racing, his hands empty and cold where hers had been only moments ago. One of the paramedics noticed him lingering. "Hey, kid," he called out. "You coming?" Adam blinked. "Me?" "She asked for you," the paramedic said, nodding toward the ambulance. "Won't stop asking who saved her." Adam hesitated. He had never been inside an ambulance before. Places like hospitals weren't meant for people like him. He imagined security guards, suspicious looks, questions he couldn't answer. But then he remembered the fear in her eyes, the way she had clung to his sleeve. He nodded slowly and climbed inside. The doors closed again, and suddenly the world outside disappeared. The siren wailed as the ambulance lurched forward. Adam sat on a small fold-down seat, gripping the edge to steady himself. Across from him, the woman lay strapped to the stretcher, oxygen mask over her face. Her eyes fluttered open when she sensed movement. "You're here," she whispered, relief washing over her face. "I said I wouldn't leave," Adam replied quietly. A female paramedic checked her vitals, speaking in calm, practiced tones. "You're doing great, ma'am. We're almost there." The woman nodded weakly, then turned her gaze back to Adam. "What's your name?" she asked. He hesitated. No one had asked him that in a long time. "Adam." "Adam," she repeated softly, as if committing it to memory. I'm Evelyn." Her grip tightened around his fingers as another wave of pain hit. Adam leaned closer instinctively, letting her squeeze his hand. "You're not alone," he said. "I'm right here." By the time they reached the hospital, Adam's legs felt like they might collapse. The paramedics rushed Evelyn through the sliding doors, doctors swarming around her instantly. Adam followed a step behind, then stopped abruptly as a security guard blocked his path. "Family only," the guard said firmly. Adam opened his mouth, then closed it. He had no argument. He wasn't family. He wasn't anything. From the stretcher, Evelyn lifted her head slightly. "He stays," she said, her voice weak but commanding. "Please." The guard hesitated, then stepped aside. Adam didn't understand it then, but that was the first time in his life that someone with power had used it for him. They placed Evelyn in a delivery room. Doctors spoke in low, urgent voices about complications, blood pressure, emergency procedures. Adam stood pressed against the wall, trying not to be seen, his wet clothes leaving dark patches on the sterile floor. Hours passed, or maybe it was minutes. Time lost meaning. Finally, a doctor approached him. "Are you a relative?" Adam shook his head quickly. "No, sir. I just helped her." The doctor studied him for a moment, his thin frame, the exhaustion etched into his face. "You did well," he said. "She came in just in time." Another delay, and it could have been very dangerous. Adam let out a shaky breath he didn't realize he'd been holding. "And the baby?" he asked quietly. The doctor smiled faintly. "Fighting spirit, just like the mother." Relief flooded Adam's chest, warm and overwhelming. A nurse led him to a waiting area and handed him a cup of hot tea. Adam stared at it, as if it were something sacred. His hands shook as he wrapped them around the cup, warmth seeping into his fingers. "You should drink," the nurse said gently. "You look like you haven't eaten." Adam shrugged. "I'm used to it." The nurse frowned but didn't push. She placed a sandwich beside the tea and walked away. Adam stared at the sandwich for a long moment. Hunger clawed at him, but something deeper, shame, maybe, held him back. He wasn't sure if it was really for him. After a few seconds, his stomach won the argument. He ate slowly, savoring every bite, tears blurring his vision as warmth and fullness spread through his body. Later, when the sky outside the hospital windows began to lighten, a well-dressed man and woman rushed into the waiting area. Their faces were pale with worry, their movements urgent. Behind them followed two men who looked more like bodyguards than relatives. "Evelyn," the woman said breathlessly. "Where's my daughter?" A doctor stepped forward. "She's stable now. She and the baby are resting." The woman pressed a hand to her mouth, relief overwhelming her. "And who is this?" the well-dressed man asked suddenly, his sharp eyes landing on Adam. Adam stiffened instantly. This was the moment he dreaded. The questions. The judgment. Before he could answer, the nurse spoke up. "That young man brought her in. He stayed with her the entire time." The man's expression shifted, from suspicion to surprise. "That was you?" he asked Adam. Adam nodded, eyes lowered. She collapsed. "I just helped." The man exchanged a look with the woman. Something unspoken passed between them. gratitude, disbelief, awe. Inside the room, Evelyn stirred. When she heard voices, she turned her head weakly. Her eyes searched until they found Adam standing awkwardly near the doorway. "There," she said softly. "That's him." Her parents, because now it was clear that's who they were, turned fully toward Adam. "That young man saved my life," Evelyn said, tears filling her eyes. "And my babies." The room fell silent. Adam felt suddenly very small. The woman stepped forward, her eyes glistening. "Thank you," she said, her voice breaking. "You have no idea what you've done for our family." Adam swallowed hard. "I just did what anyone should." But deep down, he knew that wasn't true. He had seen how many people had walked past. Evelyn reached out her hand again. Adam hesitated only a second before taking it. "Don't disappear," she whispered. "Please." He nodded, though he didn't know how someone like him could stay. What Adam didn't know, what he couldn't possibly imagine, was that the people standing before him controlled companies, cities, fortunes beyond numbers. And from this moment on, they would not forget him. Not ever. Adam sat alone on a hard plastic chair in the hospital corridor, his feet dangling slightly above the floor. The building had grown quieter as morning settled in. Nurses moved with softer steps now, voices low, the rush of the emergency fading into a dull hum. Sunlight filtered through tall windows, touching the walls with a pale gold glow that felt almost unreal to him. He still half expected someone to come and tell him he didn't belong there. Across the hall, behind a closed door, Evelyn rested. With her newborn child, the doctors had said both mother and baby were stable, healthy, safe. Those words replayed in Adam's mind again and again, like a song he didn't want to end. He hugged his arms around himself, suddenly very aware of how worn out he was. The adrenaline that had carried him through the night was gone, leaving behind nothing but exhaustion. His eyelids drooped, and before he realized it, his head leaned back against the wall and sleep pulled him under. When he woke, the corridor looked different. Brighter. Cleaner. Or maybe it was just him, finally seeing things clearly. A man stood in front of him. Tall, sharply dressed, silver hair perfectly combed. His suit probably cost more than everything Adam had ever owned combined. Yet his expression was not cold or arrogant. It was thoughtful, careful. "Adam, isn't it?" the man said gently. Adam straightened instantly. "Yes, sir." "I'm Victor Hale," the man said. "Evelyn's father." Adam nodded, unsure what to say. "May I sit?" Victor asked, gesturing to the chair beside him. Adam blinked in surprise and nodded again. For a moment, Victor said nothing. He simply looked at Adam, really looked at him. Not through him, not past him, at him. "My daughter told me what you did," Victor finally said. "She told me how you stayed with her when no one else did. How you carried her, called for help, kept her awake." Adam shifted uncomfortably. Anyone would have done the same. Victor shook his head slowly. "No, they wouldn't have." Silence settled between them. "Do you have parents, Adam?" Victor asked quietly. Adam's fingers curled into his sleeves. "Not anymore." "I'm sorry," Victor said, and this time it didn't sound like a polite phrase. It sounded real. "I grew up with very little," Victor continued. "Not on the streets, but close enough. I learned early how invisible people can make you feel when you have nothing." Adam looked up at him, surprised. "Which is why," Victor went on, "I know how rare it is to see someone choose compassion when the world has given them every reason not to." He paused, then asked the question Adam feared most. "Where are you staying?" Adam hesitated. Lying would be easier. But something in Victor's eyes stopped him. "Wherever I can," Adam said softly. Bus stops. Shelters sometimes. When there's space. Victor nodded, absorbing this. You haven't eaten much, have you? He asked. Adam didn't answer. He didn't need to. Victor stood. Come with me. Adam's heart pounded. Sir? I'd like you to meet my daughter properly, Victor said. And my grandson. Adam followed him down the hallway, his steps slow, uncertain. He felt like an intruder in a world he didn't understand. Inside the room, Evelyn lay propped up against pillows, her face pale but peaceful. In her arms was a tiny baby wrapped in a soft blue blanket. She looked up when Adam entered, and a smile immediately spread across her face. Adam, she said, her voice warm. You stayed. He nodded shyly. I wanted you to meet someone, she said softly, adjusting the bundle in her arms. This is Noah. Adam stepped closer, his breath catching in his throat. He had never been this close to a newborn before. Noah's tiny fingers curled around Evelyn's thumb, his chest rising and falling with each delicate breath. He's beautiful, Adam whispered. Evelyn's eyes filled with tears. He's alive because of you. Adam shook his head quickly. Because of the doctors. And you. Because of you, she repeated firmly. She looked at her father. Dad, I want Adam to stay. Victor raised an eyebrow gently. Stay. With us, Evelyn said. At least for now. He has nowhere to go. Adam's heart slammed against his ribs. I don't want to cause trouble, he said quickly. I can leave. Evelyn reached out and took his hand. You're not trouble. You're family. The word hit him harder than any blow ever had. Family. No one had called him that since his mother died. Victor watched them for a long moment, then nodded. We'll figure things out, he said. One step at a time. That afternoon, Adam was taken to a private shower room. Hot water poured over him, washing away weeks of dirt, exhaustion, and fear. He stood under the stream longer than necessary, just breathing, letting the warmth sink into his bones. Fresh clothes were laid out for him. Simple, clean, comfortable. When he looked at himself in the mirror afterward, he barely recognized the boy staring back. That evening, Victor returned with a woman who introduced herself as Laura, Evelyn's mother. She hugged Adam without hesitation, without judgment. Thank you for saving my daughter, she whispered into his hair. Adam stood frozen, unsure how to respond to affection that came so freely. They arranged a temporary room for him in a nearby guest house owned by the family. Adam lay on a real bed that night, staring at the ceiling, afraid to sleep in case it disappeared. But sleep came anyway, and for the first time in years, it came without fear. What Adam still didn't understand was that this wasn't just kindness. It was the beginning of a future he had never dared to imagine. Adam woke to silence. Not the tense, dangerous silence of the streets, where every quiet moment could hide a threat, but a soft, peaceful silence that felt safe. For a few seconds, he didn't move. He was afraid that if he did, the world would snap back into the cold reality he knew too well. Slowly, he sat up. The room was warm, clean. Sunlight filtered through thick curtains, painting gentle patterns across the walls. The bed beneath him was real, soft, supportive, forgiving. He pressed his hands into the mattress just to be sure. It didn't disappear. A quiet knock came at the door. Adam's heart jumped. Yes, he called. The door opened, and Laura stepped inside with a gentle smile. Good morning, she said. I hope you slept well. Adam nodded. Yes, ma'am. Very well. She laughed softly. You don't need to call me that. Laura is fine. She placed a tray on the small table. Eggs, toast, fruit, a glass of juice. The smell alone made Adam's stomach twist. Eat, she said kindly. You need strength. He sat at the table, eating slowly, carefully, still half expecting someone to tell him to stop. But no one did. Laura sat across from him, watching with quiet relief as color slowly returned to his face. Later that morning, Victor arrived. "We're going to the house," he said simply. "Evelyn is being discharged this afternoon. She wants you there." Adam hesitated. "Sir, are you sure? I don't want to be a burden." Victor met his eyes. "Adam, burdens are taken. You were given to us." The car ride felt unreal. Adam had ridden in cars before, sometimes when drivers took pity on him, but never one like this. The leather seats were soft, the windows tinted, the city sliding past like a different world entirely. When they reached the house, Adam's breath caught. It wasn't just big. It was vast. White stone, tall windows, iron gates that opened silently as they approached. Green lawns stretched farther than he could see, perfectly trimmed. For a moment, he considered staying in the car. "You belong here today," Victor said, as if reading his thoughts. Inside, the house felt warm, not cold or echoing as Adam had imagined. It smelled like fresh flowers and something sweet baking in the distance. Evelyn arrived shortly after, holding Noah close to her chest. When she saw Adam, she smiled, a genuine, grateful smile. "You came," she said. "I promised," Adam replied. Over the next few days, Adam lived in a strange in-between. He wasn't a guest, not exactly. But he wasn't family either, at least not yet. Staff members treated him with polite curiosity. Some smiled warmly. Others watched him carefully, unsure what to make of a boy who didn't fit into the world they knew. Adam tried to stay invisible. He cleaned up after himself, spoke only when spoken to, and kept to the edges of rooms. Old habits died hard. One afternoon, Evelyn found him in the garden, sitting on the grass, watching Noah sleep in his stroller. "You're always trying to disappear," she said gently. Adam shrugged. "It's easier." "It might be easier," she replied, "but it's not necessary here." She sat beside him. "Do you know what people are saying?" He shook his head. "They're saying you're a hero." Adam let out a quiet laugh. "Heroes don't sleep under bridges." Evelyn turned to him fully. "Heroes are people who do the right thing when it costs them something." Her words stayed with him. Victor soon began to ask questions, not intrusive ones, but thoughtful ones. About Adam's schooling, about what he liked, what he wanted. "I don't know," Adam admitted one evening. "I never thought that far ahead." Victor nodded. "Then we'll start with now." They enrolled Adam in a nearby school. The first day, he stood in front of the mirror, adjusting his borrowed uniform, his hands shaking. He felt like a fraud, like someone would expose him at any moment. At school, whispers followed him. Some students stared. Others ignored him. A few were kind. A few were cruel. But Adam kept going. He remembered the streets. Compared to that, this was survivable. At home, things slowly changed too. Laura taught him how to set a table properly, but never scolded him when he made mistakes. Victor explained things patiently, never talking down to him. Evelyn trusted him with Noah, trusted him completely. The first time Noah wrapped his tiny fingers around Adam's thumb, something inside Adam broke open. A feeling he couldn't name, hope, maybe, or purpose. One evening, as rain tapped softly against the windows, Victor called Adam into his study. "There's something important we need to discuss," Victor said. Adam's chest tightened. This was it. The moment it ended. Victor took a deep breath. "We've been talking as a family." Adam waited, heart pounding. "We don't want this to be temporary," Victor continued. "We want to make this official." Adam's voice barely worked. "Official?" Evelyn stepped forward, Noah in her arms. "We want to become your legal guardians," she said. "If you'll let us." The room blurred. Adam stared at them, his mind unable to process the words. Guardians. Family. Permanence. I don't understand, he whispered. Why me? Laura answered softly. Because love doesn't always come from blood. Sometimes it comes from courage. Tears spilled down Adam's face before he could stop them. He covered his mouth, ashamed. Victor shook his head gently. There is nothing to be ashamed of. For the first time in his life, Adam allowed himself to cry. Not from hunger, not from fear, but from the overwhelming weight of being chosen. Yet even as his life began to change, one truth remained hidden from him. The decision he made on that rainy night hadn't just saved a life. It had rewritten his destiny. The legal process took months, but time no longer moved like an enemy. For Adam, each day felt like a step toward something solid, something real. Paperwork was signed. Meetings were held. Questions were asked and answered. Through it all, Victor, Laura, and Evelyn never wavered. They showed up. Every time. Adam still expected the ground to disappear beneath his feet. Years of survival had trained him to believe that good things never lasted. But this was different. This wasn't charity. This was commitment. The day the judge finalized the guardianship, Adam sat in a quiet courtroom wearing a borrowed suit that fit just a little better than the last one. His hands trembled as he listened to words he barely understood. Legal terms, formal statements, signatures scratching against paper. Then the judge smiled at him. "You're a lucky young man," she said. "You've been chosen." Chosen. The word echoed in Adam's chest. When it was over, Laura hugged him tightly. Victor placed a steady hand on his shoulder, and Evelyn smiled at him through tears while rocking Noah gently in her arms. On the way home, Adam stared out the window as the city passed by. The same streets he once slept on were still there. The same bus stops. The same corners where people still sat hungry and unseen. Something inside him shifted. Life at the Hale house settled into a rhythm. Adam grew taller, stronger, healthier. Food was no longer something to fear losing. School became easier as teachers noticed his effort and quiet intelligence. He loved reading, especially stories about people who survived impossible odds. But Adam never forgot where he came from. One evening, he stood in Victor's study again, this time taller, steadier, no longer afraid of the room. "I want to do something," Adam said. Victor looked up from his desk. "What kind of something?" "For kids like me," Adam replied. "The ones no one sees." Victor leaned back, listening carefully. "I know what it's like to be hungry," Adam continued. "To feel invisible. To think no one would care if you disappeared. I don't want anyone else to feel that." Victor was silent for a long moment. Then he smiled. "That," he said, "is exactly what this family stands for." Within a year, a foundation was created, quietly, without press or applause. Shelters were renovated, education programs funded, emergency housing built. And at the heart of it all was Adam, not as a symbol, but as a guide. He spoke to children the way he wished someone had spoken to him. Honestly. Gently. One rainy night, almost exactly a year after everything began, Adam stood under the same bus stop where he once slept. He watched as volunteers handed out warm meals and blankets. A young boy sat alone on the bench, thin, frightened, trying to look brave. Adam walked over and knelt in front of him. "What's your name?" Adam asked softly. The boy hesitated. "Leo." Adam smiled. "I'm Adam. You're not alone tonight." As the boy accepted a warm meal, Adam felt something settle inside his chest. A quiet certainty. Later that night, back at home, Adam stood in the doorway of Noah's room. The baby slept peacefully, safe and loved. Evelyn joined Adam, resting her shoulder against the doorframe. "You saved us," she said quietly. Adam shook his head. "You saved me too." She smiled. "Funny how that works." Adam looked around the house, not as a guest, not as a stranger, but as someone who belonged. He finally understood something his mother once told him long ago. Kindness doesn't disappear. It grows. And sometimes, when you least expect it, it comes back to change your life forever. Sometimes, the smallest hands hold the greatest power. A starving orphan with nothing to give, but his heart changed the fate of a mother, a child, and ultimately, his own future. This story reminds us that kindness doesn't ask who you are or what you have. It simply asks if you care. If this story touched your heart, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share it with someone who needs hope today. Because one act of humanity can change a life, and maybe the world.